So, Thich Nhat Hanh is dead, and out of respect, I put on my best shirt. And this is where the respect almost ends. There are a lot of words from other teachers all around the world that you can read, and they always sound like they have not gotten any idea about the fake that is behind the whole Thich Nhat Hanh enterprise. I have not seen any investigative journalist or any Buddhist doing real research on him, but once in a while there were people who criticized him, and there was, like on his English Wikipedia site, always a bunch of guys out of his Sangha, I guess, who tried to clean up his biography. Thich Nhat Hanh, according to the CIA, the document I will link again here, I did this in my German blog years ago, was like an advisor for a militant Buddhist monk in Vietnam before he got the image of a peace activist. I'm pretty sure Martin Luther King, who actually thought he should get the Nobel Peace Prize, didn't know about that. I'm improvising here. I didn't prepare a speech. It just ran through my mind that I should do this in English, not in German like my other YouTube clips, because I have extensively talked about him in German on my blog and in forums. So I want to tell you how I see this phenomenon. Thich Nhat Hanh probably was involved in a militant activist Buddhist group in Vietnam, and when he fled the country he decided to give himself a different image, which was possible due to the difficult situation in Vietnam, and you could very well say why not oppose all the things that were done also by the CIA itself or by the American government, and all the games that were going on behind the scenes that were bringing suffering to the Vietnamese people. But I think that someone who wants to be a teacher should have a clean slate, or should at least talk about his past openly, and not try to avoid this topic, or probably send his students to clean up any of those information in the internet. Charles Prebish, a Buddhologist, once asked, where are his credentials? I myself asked the Plum Village Sangha to send me those credentials years ago, and all I got was typewritten katas. So for me it is obvious that Thich Nhat Hanh was probably not even in a regular sense a Zen teacher. Now you could say that the Vietnamese Tien tradition is of course different from the Japanese Zen or the Chinese Chan. I remember that once he was invited to a Chan temple in China, and there was a comment by a monk after his teaching that that was not Chan. So okay, it might be a Vietnamese version of what I will call Zen, but also it was mixed traditionally with what is called in Japanese Amida Buddhism or other ethnic religious stuff. I think that it is pretty clear that you are in the line of a transmission officially. If you insist on it, I normally would say that is important, but if a teacher claims to be in such a line, his documents should be right. Thich Nhat Hanh's documents were not right, and as I found out recently on Facebook, someone said that he advised his students not to talk about this if the topic would come up again publicly. I think now we have 2 points where Thich Nhat Hanh had to hide something, obviously. Then there were many others. He claims to be following Buddhist rules. Also, he had alternate versions of them. He seemed to be a traditional monk. But when he ordained someone who is said by the Vietnamese community to be more than just a Buddhist companion to him, that Sister Chan Kong, it was possible that she could have ordained in other existing Zen temples, and according to Buddhist rules it was wrong for him to do it. So he took his liberties, and you could say he broke some rules in a traditional sense. Now, I'm not the one who insists on those rules. I'm not the one who insists that a teacher has to have documents and stamps to teach. But if the teacher does it and violates those rules, he, for example, also became a founder with an input of, I think, 20,000 euro of the EIAB, who bought a very big building, former military building in Germany, and he's registered with his civil name as a co-owner. That is also a violation of Buddhist monks' rules. But I'm only saying this because he wanted to be seen as a monk. He was walking around in a robe with, not always, no, you could see all the pictures of him where he had hair, but then with a shaven head, and so on and so on. So there are contradictions. If you want to hold up a certain image and you're not fit to do it, no, there will be those leaks or breaks. You will find them with other teachers too. But there are bigger issues here, and as you can see, the Sangha of Thich Nhat Hanh has spread all over the world, and it has accumulated a lot of land and buildings. And Thich Nhat Hanh himself, I read, had sold 5 million books alone in the US. He's also very popular in Southeast Asia, where I'm living right now. You can see his books in many bookstores, and he has centers here too, of course. He was a multi-millionaire. You have to think for a moment if it is suitable for a monk in a robe to accumulate such amounts of money or possessions. Now, I did some research in the land ownership of Plum Village as an example, and I got documents from France, and I saw that parts were in the hand of his Sangha and parts were in the hand of certain Vietnamese individuals. I don't know where all the money for his books went, but students who go there usually also donate money, and it doesn't stop there, because I got the information from another Zen monk in Germany that once he gave out the title Akarya, a traditional title that is used in Myanmar, for example, only for studied monks who had studied Buddhism for years. And he said, obviously, that this was a title used in former Buddhism and even the Chan tradition, and he revived it and gave it to someone who had not studied Buddhism at a university or a monastery, but had given him, that's what I got as an information. This man is dead also. 1 million, at that time it was German marks. So there were others. If you Google them, you can find critical voices from former disciples, not many, but some have seen through this, and they have watched that he obviously changed during the course of time, and got the taste of that money and the rich people who approached him. And then it went to his head to go to shows like that famous example, Oprah Winfrey. Also, he's always advising against watching TV. He was always using those means to his advantage, and even thought that he could give advice to an American president. Now here we have a bigger issue, and now I'm using more strong words to say that actually he's a disgrace for the Zen tradition. Even if you would call it the didnt tradition, there is an academic book about the history of Vietnamese didnt Buddhism, and it actually died out hundreds of years ago. So if anyone claims today he's still in the tradition of Vietnamese Zen, he will have difficulty to prove that. But if you would accept that there is still something, there are other schools, and they are not always friendly with each other. But I don't want to get into this. There are some personal remarks about the relationship of Thich Nhat Hanh with Chan Khong, for example, that I will not go into right now, but they are quite shocking too. But for me, the important point is, besides all that, and the most important point is that his teaching is wrong, and that's why he is a disgrace to the Zen or even the didnt tradition, if they want anything to do, especially with what we call rinzai normally here or in Japan, with that line of Chan, the Linji Chan. So it's not that he didn't use stick during meditation to wake up or relax the shoulder muscles of meditators, or that he didn't shout a lot. It's that he used clever words like a poet in his teaching, but if you go deeper, and it would take too much time to do it, and I've not read all of his work, only parts of it, but that gave me a lot of headaches already. You will find that after he tries to build up a certain mood, there are the errors of him. And I got a quote that actually seemed to be so nice, and telling his Sangha how to deal with his death. You know that they are doing a 5-day ceremony and a personal cult, like they have always done with him. I call his Sangha a sect because of that cult, because of their own rules, their own special singing, their own dressing with the women at least have some headwear. And in that passage, in that quote, he said, if I die, there is a monk who wants to erect a stupa for me, and I don't want that stuff. If there is a plate, it should say, I'm not there, he's not there. And I will live on in the walking and breathing of others. So that sounds fine, and today I walked slowly because there was a lot of traffic, and where I live you sometimes have to walk on the street, there are no sidewalks. And I thought about it and how as a disciple of him I could adapt this teaching while walking and think of him and let him live in me. But then it went on. And the irony is his own biography. And I'm not joking about it, because that could be my own biography in the future or yours. He said that only the body will dissolve. And we saw that since 2014, after his stroke, and I got the information how heavy that stroke was, and could predict that there was nothing more to expect from him. Still, they made up the story that he wanted to go to Vietnam, whereas I would say they just wanted to hide him so that others would not see his suffering. But I come back to this point. Now he was obviously losing his mind first. His mind was damaged and dying first. Not his body, but the body decides about the end of it. If it isn't working, what is there with the mind? Now there's a lot of Buddhists out there who believe that there is something else after death. And he did too. Because, and this is the point, he concluded that I will not die. He's not the only teacher linked to a Zen tradition who used that words. I heard a sentence in the last teaching of another heavily criticized Japanese Zen teacher, Edo Shimano. Just before the night he died, he talked about a Dogen text about life and death. And there's a way to think about it like I mentioned before, and even your parents might say that, or you as parents, I will live on in my children. A teacher may live on in his students in the teaching. And as he often taught about breathing, awareness of breathing and walking, that would be, of course, the main topic where we would find him again. But look, if you say such a sentence as a Zen teacher, you have a great responsibility. You have made a decision to not accept fully what shunyata or emptiness is. And that means you have never really experienced it. And that means you have not awakened. And that's why I warned you I will use strong words. Thich Nhat Hanh was a fake. And when his disciples now say, we just called him Thai, to imply that they were very modest, and he was. I'm telling you, he wasn't. If you do not eradicate your egotism enough through the experience of this, what some call awakening, what might just be a rubbing off during spiritual training, which may not even be meditation. It's training of the mind. How you do it, it depends. It doesn't have to be a Zen way. You can get there of course, as a Christian or as an agnostic. But you will not accumulate possessions, because that is a hunger for status. You will not say that you don't die. You will, on the contrary, make sure, and here you see that his teaching didn't work. His disciples do not listen to him. They make this pompous ceremony for 5 days. I have seen pictures where they put him in the coffin with different layers on him. All this show is ridiculous. No one understood this passage except when they unconsciously, of course, also took in the teaching of the I that is always present when you look further and deeper into his words. It is the I that doesn't die in Thich Nhat Hanh. He saw I, and he said it will not die. If you do not die, and if your I does not die, you're not there. You're not going beyond. You're just a beginner, but not in a nice sense. So I'm not tiring to warn people of Thich Nhat Hanh and his teaching. If you're not prepared, you will stay on a superficial level of understanding of Buddhism and Zen, and it might be that what I'd call a guru phenomenon, or maybe others have called it the same way, had happened to him. He was at an early point in the US, supported by prominent figures like Martin Luther King. It went to his head. He got his people around him, listening to him, following him, not criticizing him for decades. And what that does to someone, there's research about it, and there was a nice movie, I forgot the title, that followed someone on his way to become a guru. And he's not done such a bad job, because he has written some books where he at least tries to analyze classic Buddhist texts in an acceptable way. But you know, the point is that he should not be mentioned as a Zen master, because he didn't master his ego. And there are outer criteria for it. And I'm sorry to say that one of the main criteria is how you handle material things, and how you deal with the I, your ego, and how you do that in words. And even as a talented poet that he was, you might fail at a certain point. And if you read his texts, I encourage you to look for that weakness. So far, I attacked him from many sides, and I think the Vietnamese community in Germany deserves better teachers than they had in the past. I'm German, and we had a lot of scandals, and we have a famous teacher who likes to travel first class, another example of a status fixed Buddhist monk. He's in Hanover, or he was, I think he's retired now. Another one was involved in a sex scandal. He liked to have the only luxury room in his temple with floor heating, I heard, and well, he liked minors. And now back to the one point I almost forgot, where you can see right now what the Sangha, I think led mainly by Sister Chan Kong, is doing to keep the image of Thich Nhat Hanh pure or even enhance it. When I read about his demise, it was in the morning, and CNN reported that he had died Saturday morning, according to Plum Village. That was the text. On the Plum Village side, it said, when I looked it up, he died at midnight, exactly at midnight. Some of you may remember the legend that the Buddha has gone to Nirvana at midnight. It rang a bell, and I thought, why midnight? Why not 16 minutes past 4 or something? Imagine there's so many minutes in a day. The chance is what, 1 in, let me think, 1,440 or what? That it is exactly midnight. Now I thought there must have been a doctor stating it officially, and then there was the CNN and other reports. So when I looked it up again, Plum Village on their official side had changed the time to 1:30 and now said that at midnight exactly Thich Nhat Hanh started to transition. Those are ridiculous child games, and they called in Buddhology they called I don't know if this is the correct English spelling, but Hagiography. That means you make a saint out of someone by leaving out his failures, and you lie in certain respects to what really happened, about what really happened. Okay, I didn't make notes. I probably forgot something, but maybe I write it in the comment section. A totally overrated teacher that who taught on a superficial level, and whose Sangha probably has no single person with his charisma that he had, obviously, otherwise he couldn't have been successful. I met him myself once. He was a kind and friendly, peaceful man, but that doesn't mean anything. You know about other leaders. And the problem is that they often over time deceive themselves, and they don't get it anymore, and no one is standing up and tells them. It's sad. That's it. You should look for a better teaching. You should look for better books. Thich Nhat Hanh also quoted in one of his books, just his own books, It's like on Wikipedia where they just quote the same stuff, and those memorials that I read, the newspapers, they quote the same stuff. They have sentences that are exactly alike. They always mention Martin Luther King's proposal for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's always the same. No one is doing his homework. Well,